Safety and security in computer use. Computing has changed almost every aspect of our lives. With wider access to smaller, faster, more efficient, and less expensive technology, human knowledge and capacity has surged. Not only have consumers' lives been changed, we've been able to make advancements across many industries. As people create computing innovations, there are benefits and downfalls. As we adapt the way we do things to utilize these innovations, not all of the consequences can be anticipated. Some effects can be seen as positive or negative, depending on who is looking at the situation. There is no doubt that computing has come with benefits. With access to vast knowledge at one's fingertips, cross-industry innovation, or taking an innovation from one field and applying it to solve a problem in another field, has become more commonplace. Some examples of cross-industry innovation include adding entertainment screens to MRI machines to make medical procedures more enjoyable. A new website where people can rent boats was inspired by Airbnb, and BMW's navigation system was inspired by a video game controller. Another benefit of computing is the ability to crowdsource. Crowdsourcing is the practice of obtaining information or ideas from a large group of people. You may hear crowdsourcing referred to as citizen science. Widespread access to the internet has allowed for quicker identification of problems, development of solutions, and publication of results. Human capabilities can be enhanced by this type of collaboration. Examples of crowdsourcing include businesses asking consumers to share ideas about packaging or branding, universities, scientists, or laboratories reaching out to the public about ideas to solve a problem, companies seeking ideas for innovations, and scientists asking for people to share specific data like animal sightings, weather data, etc. Crowdfunding is a spin-off on crowdsourcing. This is a process that allows people to seek funding for new ideas, projects, and innovations from the general public using sites like GoFundMe, Indiegogo, and Patreon. Crowdfunding has been used to provide startup money, otherwise known as capital, for new businesses, as well as to fund inventions and artistic projects. While each of the sites above has unique terms of service and work a little differently, all crowdfunding sites work in basically the same way. Sites like GoFundMe, Indiegogo, and Patreon provide platforms for people who need money to collect, often small amounts, from many different people to meet their funding goal. Open innovation is the intentional practice that promotes sharing of information and across groups. Open innovation runs against the common current in business and technology that seeks to keep information secret or only known within one organization. Think of it as being open to sharing and receiving information. Many companies and businesses like to keep new changes to their products or methods secret to their competitors, in the hopes of being more successful. Open innovation promotes a frequent give and take of information from both inside and outside a company, with the goal being to develop the best possible idea. In an age where access to the internet and computers make it easier than ever to share and access information, new sets of legal issues have developed. These laws seek a balance between making information openly available to all, while also protecting intellectual property and copyright. Computing can also play a role in social and political issues, which in turn often raises legal and ethical concerns. Commercial and governmental curation of information may be exploited if privacy and other protections are ignored. One such law is the Digital Millennium Copyright Act, a U.S. copyright law that was passed in 1998. This law seeks to strike a balance between making information available online to users while also protecting those who own copyrighted material. It is intended to ensure that materials with copyright are not used illegally on the internet. The U.S. government protects the ownership of those who hold a copyright. Since illegal sharing of copyrighted work often takes place unknown to the internet service provider or web host, the U.S. government has agreed to not hold them liable if they have no knowledge of or financial benefit from the activity on its network, publish a policy that they will not knowingly allow unlawful sharing of copyrighted work, and they agree to take down any material that they are told infringes on copyright ownership. The ability to easily share digital media has led to a wide range of ways to illegally share files, software, download and stream media, etc. Often, those who benefit from illegal sharing are housed in other countries with more lax laws about digital property. The World Intellectual Property Organization has been established to protect intellectual property worldwide. But what is intellectual property? Intellectual property is a work or invention that results from a person's creativity and can be patented, copyrighted, or trademarked. Examples of intellectual property include designs, trade secrets, procedures for specific ways of doing a task, and manuscripts. Aside from intentionally stealing or misusing someone else's intellectual property or copyrighted works, plagiarism has increased with greater access to wide information. Plagiarism refers to taking someone else's identical words, work, or ideas and claiming them as your own, without properly citing the owner. With access to the internet so widespread, access to the world's knowledge is at your fingertips, and plagiarism has become especially tempting for students. However, even though we're most familiar with plagiarism performed by students, plagiarism happens in other contexts as well. There are also unintentional downfalls in the world of computing. These include programmer bias, privacy infringement, and inequitable access to technology and the internet. One unintended problem with life in the digital age is programmer bias. Bias refers to favor given to something based on one's own prejudices or life experience. Even without trying, one's perception of the world creates bias. If programmer bias is not tempered, there can be unintended consequence. As we begin to depend more on programmed devices in the future, unchecked bias can become more serious. We see the effects of programmer bias when beta tests of new versions of software or hardware are released. The general public is a great resource for identifying programmer bias. If the programmers and initial testers of a new piece of software did not account for a group of people, a certain look, or a specific language, and release their product to the public often provides this feedback. Sometimes, computing innovations can be used in ways their creators did not originally intend. For example, the World Wide Web was originally created only as a way for scientists to quickly share information. Targeted advertisements, while great for businesses, can seem intrusive to individuals. Machine learning and data mining have enabled innovation in medicine, business, and science, but information discovered in this way has also been used to discriminate against groups of individuals. Some of the ways computing innovations can be used may have a harmful impact on society, the economy, or culture. Now that we've explored some of the negative impacts that can happen in the world of computing, we can better understand that it is the responsibility of every programmer to do their best to mitigate these dangers. Most major associations dedicated to computer programming and computing have developed a code of ethics that addresses the ethical responsibilities of programmers. What responsibilities do you think a programmer carries? When we discuss a programmer's code of ethics, we are not referring to a text-based piece of code that all programmers need to use. In actuality, we are discussing the guide that outlines a programmer's fundamental ethics when developing programs and software for the public. This code of ethics promotes accountability for including all possible persons in programming solutions and transparency with the public as to what information about a user of a piece of software gathers and manipulates. Every programmer should consider all possible uses of the technology they create. However, it is impossible to anticipate every possible outcome. Although computer use has many benefits, and there are laws in place to protect and help secure data and a user's privacy when computing, using protections known as cybersecurity practices decrease the likelihood that information could be stolen. The most basic definition of cybersecurity is protecting yourself and others from attacks carried out through and by computers. Every computer and system has vulnerabilities that, if breached by a person with the right skills and equipment, can allow unauthorized access to personal information. As we navigate the internet, we leave a trail of information about ourselves. These crumbs of information are descriptive enough to trace them back to us and our identity. We call this recorded data that is left behind a digital footprint. Your digital footprint is a trail of personally identifiable information that can be used to identify you. Information such as your name, birthday, address, phone number, social security number, biometric data, race, medical and financial information would be considered personally identifiable information. PII can be used to identify a person, including their location. When working with and on digital platforms, you should be aware of the footprint they are leaving. It is important to make sure that your digital footprint is not only positive, but also that you are safe about sharing personal information and that you don't give others personal information away without their permission. Digital devices such as phones, smartwatches, tablets, laptops, and smart home devices track your movements and voice daily. Social networking or online gaming platforms where you post comments, feedback, pictures, and videos all record and save your content to your profile. Cards like ATM cards, credit cards, and school IDs have identification information that is attached to your identity and can trace things like where you made your last purchase or what time you bought lunch. Most stores, whether they are grocery stores, home stores, hardware stores, or clothing stores, have cameras throughout the store and in their parking lots. Even driving through many intersections involves having the license plate of your car photographed and filed. If data is stored locally on a device, then searching the local disk memory would provide access to the data. Data can also be stored on external or web-based databases or on a separate piece of software. If it is sensitive data that should be accessible by the public, like medical records, the data is encrypted. It is important to remember that information placed online is incredibly difficult, if not impossible, to delete. Things you post online can be used in ways that were not intended and that may have a harmful impact. For example, an email message may be forwarded, tweets can be retweeted, and social media posts can be viewed by potential employers. When you use devices to surf the internet and provide others with your PII, there can be negative consequences. Websites can track those who have visited their website. Posted information on social media accounts can be retweeted or shared by potential employers. Information about a user's location can be collected. Information can be used to stalk or steal a person's identity. You may or may not have been aware of the effects of your PII being available, but you should always consider how much you want others to know about you. There are times when this information can get into the wrong hands, granting access to an unbelievable amount of your virtual space.